this burned out, watch your backs, this burned out police vehicle over here.
It's a paddy wagon.
Okay, so this was the branch of the police department that was kind of...
The riot police, exactly.
Okay.
Actually, if you remember that stand-up where I was getting heavily tear-gassed and a guy collapsed pretty much in my hands, that was right here. Because the protesters were all lined up and in a big crowd, and the riot police were over there by that bridge. And the protesters were rushing them, and then the riot police would fire tear gas back into the crowds, and then the protesters would rush again. So there were these running battles, and people would retreat to try and get out of the tear gas. So we were retreating back in that way, and whenever they would overwhelm a police vehicle, they would set it on fire.
That could happen again if the pace of change doesn't pick up.
It could, but more difficult now because there's no one to fight. The police, who they hated, pretty much retreated and never came back to the streets. They sent in the army instead, and the people don't want to fight the army. The people like the army. You can't really fight an army unless the army shoots back at you, and the army doesn't want to shoot at the people. So they sent in the army to stop the clashes, but the army hasn't been able to contain the protests.
What's the helicopter about? It's the same...
Yeah, I don't know what it's about. It keeps circling. I guess it's a show of force. Maybe there's cameras in it. They've had a few jets that have buzzed overhead, but mostly it's just presence.
This is part of the economy that has popped up to service the protest.
Well, this is just new today, where people are... You can tell it's starting... there's an air of permanence to this. People are serving tea, sodas. This is all new. Before, the protests were much more violent. I mean, there was tear gas in here. You couldn't stay, let alone, serve tea.
So this is a mom and pop operation here.
These are people who've decided this is a new kind of life in Egypt.
What does that banner say, hanging down from the highway overpass?
It says, Yuskut, Yuskut, Hosni Mubarak. Down, down, Hosni Mubarak.
Okay.
So that has been a constant chant here. The word Yuskut means to fall. So fall, or down, down, Hosni Mubarak.
And in your walks down here, have you seen much anti-U.S. sentiment, as they say?
Not really. Not directed at me personally. People are not happy with the U.S. position. They think that it's wishy-washy, frankly. They think the U.S. has come out in favor of Mubarak, has come out in favor of them, is trying to go back and forth. They want a clear statement. You're with us or you're with Mubarak. And the U.S. is trying to thread this needle, and they don't appreciate it.
Hey, man, thank you. Can you talk us through here?
السلام عليكم أستاذ. إحنا صحفيين رايحين مظاهرة إن شاء الله. مظاهرة؟ طب أي حاجة. لكن إحنا أجانب يعني ما عندناش بطاقة. لكن إحنا أجانب ما عندناش بطاقة. I'm not from here.
Go ahead. From U.S.
One minute, please.
Okay.
Please. هو ما عنده سلاح. بليز. تفضل. أنا تحت عينك.
Okay.
تحت عينك. Look, they want to make sure that people don't have weapons. And this, when people get empowered, everyone takes charge.
Everyone's now, we've gone from an unorganized protest to
a hyper-organized protest.
And everyone is appointing themselves as a volunteer.
Everyone's a volunteer. Everyone's a leader. Everyone's in charge.
Is there any metaphor there for what might happen in a post-Mubarak Egypt?
Well, I think the political process right now has lots and lots of disparate leaders. There's nobody really in charge.
There are a lot of signs that are completely indifferent. They say things like one Egypt. You can't tell what side they're on.
This movement has one thing unifying it. It is they want Mubarak to go. They don't know who they want to lead them exactly. They don't know what kind of government they want. They talk about toppling the system, but don't get a lot more specific than that.
Now explain the architecture here. We're entering the final funnel. This is one way in.
This is
the
primary way in. This is the Egyptian Museum. You can see there's some armed guards on the roof.
This is where most of the great antiquities are housed.
This is one of the best museums in the world. A fantastic pharaonic collection, the mummies, the golden funerary mask of King Tut, that's all inside. And now people are still streaming here.
Now the curfew starts in a...
Well, the curfew may have already started.
So it's being completely disregarded by those on foot downtown.
Oh, totally. If it didn't start right now, it's starting right about now, and nobody's paying attention.
Before we get too far into this, this empties into what's more of a circle than a square.
Tahrir circle.
Yeah. And there's no mechanism to address all the people, correct? There's no loudspeakers.
There are different little loudspeakers, but there's no one central PA system.
So they're making a sign on their way in. Everyone is expressing something.
So they're yelling that Mubarak is an American spy. And that's something you hear all the time, that Mubarak has been too close. That Mubarak has been too close to the United States, that he's a lackey, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Hello.
All right. And that's kind of a fiction. This was overturned during Friday's disturbance?
Most likely, yeah. That's when all the violence, all the fires took place. It could have been overturned the next morning, but this area Friday was a very different scene.
Okay.